welcome to Let's Talk AppSecOps. My name is Mark Lambert. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at ArmorCode. I'm joined by my good friend Alex East, who is practitioner, advisor extraordinaire. You've done a whole bunch of stuff in this space, right? And vulnerability management especially.
Yes, man and boy, since God was in short pants.
Exactly. And for those that haven't met Alex and I together before, we are two different people, even though some have said that he's my digital twin.
That's why I'm wearing the hat today, so
just
people
so we
can
can
tell us apart.
differentiate as well. Don't be fooled by the accent. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about risk scoring, and we're going to talk about how we can really get out from this overwhelming tidal wave of vulnerabilities, findings, and alerts. So Alex, as you've been working with folks over the years, how have you seen risk scoring help, and what have you seen as being the key attributes to be able to use to get the true value out of a risk scoring model?
Yeah, so I mean, risk score, it's kind of a necessary evil, right? It's used for a couple of different things. One is for CISOs and stuff to be able to report to their boards where they are currently, right? What are the odds that we will end up on the front page of some newspaper down the line? And also to measure how that risk is being reduced over time as well, and the actions that you're doing to help reduce that. So it's that kind of quantification. You can't fix what you don't measure. So in order to measure the efficacy of your efforts to fix vulnerabilities, to create good software that doesn't have weaknesses that people can exploit, you have to be able to quantify that in some way. And people have kind of settled on risk, because it's looking into the future, right? It's a predictive analysis, if you will, of what's the likelihood that something bad is going to happen. The other kind of major use for risk is in insurance. Insurance companies, if a company is going to an insurance company and saying, hey, we want to be able to take out an insurance policy against ransomware or a breach or something like that, the first thing that the insurance company is going to come back to them with is, well, what is your current risk level? Right. And that can either be something that the company creates themselves if they have an ongoing risk practice and provide to the insurance company, or sometimes insurance companies will have their own set of tools and they will go in and measure the risk of a company both outside in and inside out, right? So using products like security scorecard and things like that. So that's where I see the main uses of risk right now.
Yeah, and you touched on something which was really important there, I thought, as well, which is, it's not just a number. Is this number getting better or worse? Can I truly articulate to my leadership that I've got things under control and I'm making improvements? And you have to also take into account that in any given day, there could be a new thing that's just popped in that has actually undone all of the hard work that you'd done previously. So you have to be able to say, here's my posture today, here's how that has changed over time, and here's what's impacting it today as well, right? If I've got, let's just pick some random numbers, if I got 1,000 vulnerabilities that came in this month, but I mitigated 1,500, I'm actually doing really good. Versus if I got 1,000 that came in this month and I only mitigated 500, then it shows I'm drowning and I'm underwater. So risk in itself is not the only number to monitor your progress and the improvements or otherwise that you're making out of the posture.
Yeah, and to your point as well, it's not just saying, hey, I've got 2,000 vulnerabilities and I fix 500. That might be great if you fix the 500 that you have in your environment that are high priority based on all the factors that you use for prioritization, things like external intelligence, exploitability, whether that vulnerability sits on an externally facing asset or something like that, right? Because you might go, a month fixing 2 or 3 vulnerabilities and reduce your risk by a larger amount than if you fixed 40 or 50 lower priority ones.
Yeah, and that priority you just kind of touched upon a very key thing. You just said very, very briefly there for a moment. It's the technical of, hey, is this actually exploited, right? Which is going to increase its likelihood if you know this vulnerability has been exploited either within your organization or externally. But then what is it associated with as well, right? That, hey, is it your publicly facing asset? Or more importantly, is it a business critical asset? Is it something that is running your organization's critical infrastructure and critical business practice? Is it something that's subject to a particular compliance requirement? So, things around critical industries, things around FedRAMP, things around, other, government-related regulation requirements, or even PCI, Payment Criticon. If those systems are subject to those requirements, then the potential impact to your business is much higher as well if you don't remediate those risks.
Absolutely. And the thing with adding in your own internal infrastructure is only you have a view into that, right? And only you can quantify that. So that's why when I see, different products around that do like benchmarking, where they say, well, how does our company compare to other companies in the same vertical? Well, they might be using the same product to measure their risk, but they might not be quantifying the internal risk in the same way. They might say, well, all of my company A says all of my PCI assets, I'm going to give them a risk level of an 8. And then, company B says all of my PCI assets are going to be a risk level 6. And now you're saying, well, now you're not comparing apples to apples, are you? You're using the same apple basket, but they're different types of apples. So you can't do that direct comparison.
And yeah, you're as I say, you're not comparing apples to apples, but you're also, it's the how long's the piece of string piece, right? If I'm gonna, we were talking about this earlier today, is like, how do you aggregate risk up through a hierarchy like we do at ArmorCode? And you can do a cumulative aggregation of saying, okay, how many of this and how many of that, but you're comparing two different things, because maybe one system is significantly more complex. And if you're trying to going across companies within the same vertical, you get that same challenge. It's like, I do hear that from time to time where organizations want to say, okay, how do I compare against somebody else that's in industrial automation, for example? But I think that is a really good topic for us to get into in our next episode, where we talk about the pitfalls of risk scoring. So let's take away from today. So risk scoring can give us some posture, so we understand what our number is, but the number is not as important as the trending. Are we getting better or worse? And when you look at that, you have to take into account the new things that have come in versus the old things. You have to compare your business risk as well as not just the technical risk. And we can then use that to prioritize, as you said, Alex, fix the right 5 things, not the 40 or 400 things that don't actually matter to your creative business critical assets.
Right, and there's 2 things kind of sprung to mind as well there, and one is risk appetite. Different companies have different risk appetites. Some people, will tolerate a higher risk level than others. The other thing is risk acceptance, right? So it's the example I always use is, hey, I've got this vulnerability. It's a Java vulnerability. In order to fix it, I need to upgrade to the latest version of Java. If I do that, it's going to break every application that's running that version of Java. So I need to be able to accept that risk for a period of time. So have the vulnerabilities still exist, but they don't feed into my risk, because I've accepted that risk is there. And I will get to it, the clock's ticking. I'm going to say, after 30 days, I'm going to reevaluate that. And if those vulnerabilities are still there, then I want to pop them back up, to the top of the list. But in the meantime, I'm going to accept that level of risk. So that's something else that people need to take into account.
Yeah, and I think that's another one that I will want to dig into as well. Difference between accepting risk and an exception of risk as well. So anyway, thank you, Alex. This has been great. I think as I said, let's get on again and talk about the pitfalls of risk scoring. With that being said, thank you everybody for watching. Click like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. If you've got any thoughts or things you'd like to get us to talk about, go ahead and put them in the comments. And don't forget to check out ArmorCode.com. If this is something that's really important to you, we have definitely been focused on solving this problem ourselves. So we'd love to connect and share more. So with that being said, thank you very much. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.